Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to give you the 30 life hacks I wish I knew before 30. These were surprising to me. These are things I'm basically truncating my 35 years, if I'm being honest, of experience into one quick video. I'm going to go through these quick, so let's jump right in. So the first one is financial literacy. So from day one, we're taught that savings is so important and there's so many benefits like save your money, save. The bigger thing that you can do is figure out how to make money faster. And it is good to budget and figure out how to slow your spending. But more than anything, saving is not the solution. Like we're seeing, inflation really go up. And so it's like when you have inflation going up 5% year over year, even if your money is in a high yield 5% account, savings account, you're lucky if you break even. So saving is not the solution. Making money faster is the solution. Number two, the law of the farm. So many of us here, you reap when you sow. And I think we think in our minds, oh, you reap when you sow. Like if I'm kind to somebody else, if I start this business, if I do this, then I'll get this. What we don't realize is there's a delay in between, right? Like the law of the farm is you reap what you sow, but you don't reap when you sow. You reap generally much later in a different season. And so that's something to be aware of is like, you will get the benefits, but they're not going to come immediately. Number three, whatever you focus on expands. And so I'm not like an overly positive person. I like to stay in neutral. But when we tend to look at whatever we're looking at, whether it's positive or negative, this, especially with an election year, there's like so much polarizing information on both sides, and you can kind of get sucked into it and like start to hyper focus on it. And whatever you're focusing on expands. And so for me, I try to live with a positive bias of like, I don't want to see all the bad drivers on the road. I don't want to see all the inconsiderate people at the store. And when I don't focus on that, I actually, all of a sudden I see other people helping other people out. I see people stopping to help someone whose car broke down. I see people at the store picking stuff up for somebody else, like off the floor, but also picking up their purchase of groceries. Like I see stuff I wouldn't have been aware of. And so whatever you focus on expands. Number four, knowledge is power. We hear that all the time, right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. It's potential power. Knowledge is potential energy. Just knowing is not the same as doing. There's more power in doing than in knowing. You can do something and fail or succeed, and you will gain knowledge from that. But I think so many people think if they just know, if they just go to school, if they just have this degree, then they will be ready to do a thing, or they'll be somehow more qualified. And that's not always the case. Knowledge needs to be put into action. It needs momentum behind it in order to truly be valuable. So that's number four. Number five is, and this is a hard one for me to go into, especially in the season of life that I'm in, but number five is all work works. Credit to Myron Golden on this one, but I find it to be true as well, which is even when it doesn't feel like it's working, all work works. What does that mean? That means if things are going your way, it's working for you, right? You got a great job, you're getting a promotion, you've met the person of your dreams, you're engaged, you had a kid, whatever, all of the stuff's working, it's working for you. When life is not working, you're getting divorced, you lost your job, everything's falling apart, life's working on you. And there's value to both. And I think a lot of times we only feel like, we only see the upside, we only want to see the upside. But all work works, and so just trust whatever season it is that you're going through. There's value that you're extracting out of it, even if you don't see it right now. So I think this is number six, leapfrogging the ladder. So I was talking to someone in their 20s, and they said they really wish they understood a way of how to fast track their way to getting to employment. And I think so many people get caught in this mindset of like, I've got to get a 9 to 5, I've got to get this job, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't ever have to have a job. You could start your own company if you feel called to do that. You could. So many people also get sucked into the whole thing of like, I need this degree, I need this certification, it's like before the degree and before the cert, there was a person that created the degree, and they created the cert as a business or a way to make money in certifying people or giving them a degree for whatever. For most things, like, yes, if you're a civil engineer, you probably should get certified in engineering and know how to write blueprints. And if you're a surgeon, you definitely need to know how to cut people open before you go jump into that. But if you're a software engineer or you're an artist or whatever, you don't necessarily need to get sucked into this. There's just one myopic way of solving that problem. There's one myopic way of going to where you want to go. There are ways to leapfrog the ladder, especially today with access to information like never before. And so don't get sucked into this myopic approach of like, I have to do all of these things linearly and in order, and it's going to take this many years. There are ways for you to leapfrog from where you are to where you want to be. You just have to think creatively about it, and you might have to do something in a new or novel way. Okay, every thought you have is not true. There's a difference between what is true and what is truth. So this is one, I think Myron Golden, I was listening to a video of his today. He was talking about how, a belief, actually it wasn't, it was an Ed Milet interview, and they were talking about how a belief is just a thought that you have several times. And so every thought that you have is not true. I think so many times we get sucked into believing every thought we have, right? And a lot of times this is more relevant towards self-talk, because we talk to ourselves probably more than most anybody else. And so it's, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, which goes back into the previous point of, I need this cert, I need this degree, I need this thing. And there will be another excuse after you obtain that anyway. And so it's understanding this process of every thought you have is not necessarily true. Every thought you have is not necessarily positive or negative. Like being aware at standing in guard at the gate of your mind and understanding what's coming in and what's coming out and why those things are in there. And then the second part of this point is there's a difference between what's true right now and what's truth. Truth never changes. Truth is principles. It's like the law of gravity, or, the moon rising and then the sun setting and whatever. Like all of that, those are like, that's truth. They don't change. Where there's things like that are true right now. Right now, I'm wearing this jacket and these jeans, but I'm not going to wear this. That's true right now, but I'm not going to be wearing these all day or forever, right? And so understanding what's true and what's truth. A lot of times people take things that are true and they act as if they're truth. They act as if information right now for diet or exercise or computer science, they act as if what's true right now is going to be truth forever. But there's always new information that's coming out. There's always better information that's coming out. And so being aware of the differentiation between truth and what's true is important. Okay, next one is diet and exercise. So many people get sucked up into this, but I want you to understand why. Like, why are diet and exercise important? So they're not just about shaping our physical body, but they're about shaping the mind, right? Like so much in the audience that I speak to, which is entrepreneurs and people wanting to start a business and founders, it's like, I don't go to the gym just for the physical effects of like, being healthier and all that. That's great. But it's the same, it mirrors the same things that you want to do in your business of having a routine, being consistent, showing up and doing it when you don't want to do it, going when you're sick, whatever it is. It's like, it's so much about shaping your mind and the routines and the process and the habits and the consistency and the confidence, more than it is for me about just shaping your physical body. So that's that one. Happiness and joy are a choice. Money can remove or even lessen unhappiness, but it cannot buy happiness. So what does this mean? You can use money, you can leverage money to not have to worry about having a roof over your head, not having to worry about where you're going to get your next meal, not having to worry about where you're going to sleep, eating organic, healthy food, not having to worry about medical care. It can take the stress of all of those things away, but it can't necessarily buy happiness. In fact, a lot of times we've heard people say more money, more problems, right? But it's really more money, bigger problems. And so understanding that happiness and joy are a choice that are not tied to cash flow, cash accumulation, cash stockpiling cash, like those are things you want to figure out before you even start down the money thing. Because if you can't be happy when you're poor, you're probably not going to be happy when you're wealthy. Okay, so every negative has a positive, every positive has a negative. Things are rarely ever good or bad. So I think on the time horizon of what seemingly feels like a moment to us, and it's just funny, I was just talking to my dad about this. You have a brother that's in his 50s and has early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, and I'm talking to him about it. It's like, it's hard to see what the positive is right now in him being diagnosed with that and have like all the stuff that it means for him and the family and all this stuff. It's really confusing and it's really frustrating, but there will be positives that come out of it. It's not always just negatives. I think growing up, having lived through 9/11 and literally being in the cloud of smoke from the World Trade Centers having come down that next day, seeing how the country came together, seeing how firefighters and business people and all these people came from across the country to help clean that mess up so quickly, and the unifying effect that it had on people. Things are not always just bad. They're not always just good. They're a combination of both, but usually we look at a time horizon of this moment, and what feels like a pinprick right now doesn't necessarily mean it will be forever. And so understanding that there's two sides to every coin. Okay, confidence comes after action. I've yet to meet an adult that knows what the heck they are doing. So I recently connected with someone on LinkedIn, and in his bio it said, sold a $100 million company, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. And I have so much respect for that, because I think the reality is so many of us, we want to go around looking like we have it all figured out, when in reality we don't. And that's kind of the game. We figure out a little piece, we help somebody else figure out what we figured out, they help us figure out something they figured out, and it's kind of the cycle, right? And so confidence comes from action. It's not just something that you can have before you do the thing. It's not something that you can have without falling on your face. It's a active process. It's not inactive. You can't just read your way to being confident. Okay, next one is the difference between where you are and where you want to be is you. No one's coming to rescue you. So this is one I say a lot. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is you. No one's coming to rescue you. So this is just to say, like, whether it's the relationship you want, or the company you want, or the revenue figure you want for your company, so many people think a tactical thing, a business coach, this product, this kind of marketing, if we get on Facebook, if we do this, if we do that, those things might be the unitized components, but you won't even recognize them if you're being resistant. If your mind is not, if you're not ready to hear those things from your CMO, or you're not ready to attract that right kind of partner, like, you won't. And so understanding that, and you can look at this a different way too. Like, you can get a done-for-you service, right? Go get a done-for-you marketing service. What happens when you stop spending with them? You haven't become the person that can do the thing. And so when you stop spending with them, you no longer have those benefits. And so the difference between where you are and where you want to be, it's always you, if you want it to be a lasting change, a lasting difference. And so I think that is one of the most important lessons I've learned. Okay, this is, I don't even know what number we're on, but the next one is most people will say things they don't mean and mean things they don't say. I think if you're living life and you have your eyes open, you'll notice this to be true. So many people say things that they don't mean. They make plans. They commit to doing things that they don't have really any level of interest in doing, but they do it to be nice, or that people please, or whatever. And so many people, when you read them, you read their body language, their face, their tonal inflections. You get the sense that they want to say something, but they're not saying how they really feel about it. And so just understanding, like, I think for me, body language cues and also like actions are so important, because they tell you what's going on in someone's head. How do they show up? Do they do what they say they're going to do? How do they go about life? Are they disheveled? Are they, a lot of people think like, oh, I'll just give them one more chance. I'll give this one more chance. I'll give this one more chance. And it's like, but if you just look at the way that they treated their car, they treated their relationships, they treat their pets, whatever, like you can start to paint a picture of like what that experience is going to be like, and it's and the level of consistency to it. So understanding that people, they don't necessarily mean everything that they say, and they don't necessarily say everything that they mean. Okay, next one is, it's more powerful to seek truth over being correct. I think this is a really strong one. A lot of times, like, I'll say it. I love Tom Bilyeu. I think he's an awesome guy. I've learned so much from him, and he's changed my life in a lot of ways. But I find a lot of the content when I'm watching his videos, there's like a level of resistance of like, there's these linear paths and it has to fit in this way. And if it's spiritual and there's like a God component, it's just like, you can see he has like resistance to it. And so it's like, if it doesn't fit his model that seems to feel right for him, it's like, it doesn't fit. But he always says, I'm trying to seek truth, or I'm trying to seek the next lesson or whatever. And I'm making this point not to attack Tom. Tom has been more impactful, certainly, than I feel like I am or ever will be. But I say it because so many of us can get stuck in this trap of not being fully open to like seeking truth, because we have this agenda for a thing to be right. And so if you have an agenda for something to be right, or you're looking for something to be true, you can't be simultaneously doing that and then open to what's really actually true. Okay, Next one is, we kind of touched on this previously, but your actions will tell the people around you more than your words ever will. There's a really good quote, I think it was from Mark Twain. It was like, my goodness, your actions speak so loud, I cannot hear your words. Something to that effect, and it's a really strong one. All right, moving on. Truth often lives in the gray area. Politics, carnivore versus vegan, most things live on a spectrum. Try not to get sucked into either pole, unless it's your faith. So I had a friend whose dad always used to say, the truth always lies somewhere in the middle. And I think that's really accurate. You know, you can look at the carnivore and vegan diet and all this stuff, and people get so wrapped up into one or the other. And it's like, just from a basic common sense level, it would seem that the ideal way for us to consume would be some blend of both, right? Like, we have enzymes in our gut that are made to break down proteins from fish and from animals. We have canines that are literally made to tear apart meats and flesh. We have so many benefits from polyphenols and fruits and fiber. And so truth lives, you know, I think a lot of times truth is it's somewhere in the middle. It's not at either crazy pole. And you guys can make your own judgments with that politically, but I think it's true with politics too. Okay. Depression and anxiety. You hear so much about these, and I think they're so, mental health, all this stuff is like so stigmatized. But they're normal. Like, if someone dies in your family, your parents are going through divorce, you're going to a new school, you uproot your life, you're starting a new company, like, or you just have a kid. Depression, anxiety, like, they're gonna come. I think everybody deals with them to some extent. It's when they start, running your life is when it becomes a problem, right? Just like an alcoholic. I think you can be an emotionaholic and have your anxiety and your depression start running your life. They come in waves, they come in seasons, they come in patterns. You get better at dealing with them. You notice the trend of when they come, and you notice how to cope better, right? If you go through a divorce, you know that there's going to be a wave of things coming. If you just had a company fail, you know that there's going to be a wave of things coming. As Tom Bilyeu would say, if you just sell your company for $1 billion, there's going to be a wave of emotions and depression and things from that void of, what do I do now, that come. So being aware and being aware that they're a natural part of life. Know yourself. So this comes from Lewis Howes in his book, the greatness book. I forget the title of it, but know yourself, because no one else can do this for you. I think this is so true. Like, so many of us don't even know our goals. We don't know what we want from life. We're just going about life. And so know yourself, because no one else can do that for you. Take care of yourself first. Taking care of yourself first is the most selfless thing you can do. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So many people, they just want to people please. They want to help other people. They want to serve other people first. And what ends up happening is they get burnt out. They have a panic attack. And now you become a burden for the people around you. And so taking care of yourself first is the most selfless thing that you can do for the people in and around your life. If you want to pour into other people, you need to make sure that your cup, it doesn't always need to be perfectly filled, but you need to have something in it in order to pour into other people. Okay. If you continue to fight for your limitations, you will end up keeping them. So I was talking to somebody today. I was literally at the gym with my trainer today, and I was like, he was like, we were doing some kind of leg workout, and I was like, I don't have good balance or whatever. And I caught myself saying something to that effect. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not going to fight for that. Like, let's just do it without the stick to help me balance. Like, I want to get better at this. Like, be mindful of the things, the limitations that you're fighting for. Like, when people say my ADHD or this or that, like, don't fight for it, because you will get to keep it. That's an approach that I like to have, whether it's an actual illness or a disease or whatever. Like, just be wary of it. Be mindful of using those words. Beliefs rate limit your life. So whether you believe you can do a thing or whether you believe you... So this is a quote by Henry Ford. Whether you believe you can do a thing or not, you are right. Your beliefs rate limit your life. If you think making a certain amount of money is greedy, you're probably not going to make that amount of money. If you think you have to go to college to do X, Y, and Z thing, you're probably going to force yourself to go through that process in order to do that thing. You're not going to see the different way to circumvent or leapfrog that process. And so be mindful of what you're believing. Be open to lowering your resistance to taking in new information. Okay, the next one is your personality is not permanent. You can change. I think Dr. Benjamin Hardy has a book on this called Personality Isn't Permanent. Maybe that's somebody else. He also has Be Your Future Self Now. There's a whole bunch of books out there that talk about how personality can change. And yet sometimes people get stuck in the habit of thinking how you are is how you'll always be. That's not true. Easy, hard principle. This is the next one. If it's hard now, it'll be easy later. If it's easy now, it'll be hard later. So a lot of times I think about this principle all the time, and it's a motivator for me. If a business, if a relationship, if something is, not always with the relationships, right? Because if it's hard now, it might be worse later. But if you're, if you're laying the groundwork for something, if you're starting to save for a 401k or a certain thing, it's like, it might be hard right now. It might be a lot of money out of your paycheck. It might be a lot of time to work on that thing. It might, it might cost a lot up front to get that car that's safer for your family or whatever it is. But it's like the benefits down the road are generally higher when it's harder up front. So easy, hard principle is something I like to think about. If it's hard now, it'll be easy later. If it's easy now, it'll be hard later. All right, next one. Joy and fulfillment are the ultimate success. Because the goalpost, and this comes from the Science of Sean Aker and like the Happiness Advantage book, which is like a whole world of positive psychology. But joy and fulfillment are the ultimate success because the goalpost always keeps moving on achievement, whether it's financial achievement, athletic achievement, we're always pushing the boundaries, right? It's part of being human. So fulfillment and joy are going to be impossible to obtain if you have them only tied to those those achievements, those moving goalposts. And so there's a time to celebrate, and there's a time to slow down, and there's a time to find fulfillment in the thing that you're doing and joy in what it is that you're doing in the moment. You cannot control everything. You can control the inputs, you can do the work, I can record these videos, I can do the unitized work, but it's only God that controls the outputs, right? Like it's God that controls the outcomes. I can't make this video go viral. I can't make it help anybody. And so understanding that not everything is in your control, but you can worry about the inputs, you can focus on the inputs, doing your part, and the rest you got to leave to God. He controls the outcomes. Next one is knowing your why. Knowing why you're doing a thing is inherently more powerful than knowing how. So many people end up not doing a thing because they're not sure how they would do it, but they're really passionate about the why, and they're called to the why. So knowing your why is super critical. And you want to focus on the why more than the how. Certainly don't let the how stop you from fulfilling your why or from figuring out how to start working on your why. The next one is capitalize on momentum in your life. It will not be there forever, and it's critical. Tony Robbins talks a lot about momentum. You can go learn from him on why it's so important, but if you're in the right place at the right time, you have people that want to start a thing with you, you have someone wants to start a nonprofit, a project, a company, whatever it is, understand that won't be there forever. Those options won't be there forever. That door is opening. Capitalize on the momentum in your life. All right, the next one is people don't care what you have to say until people feel like you care about them. Let me say it again. People don't care what you have to say until they feel like you care. So I think this is a really good one. A lot of times people get in these political debates or arguments and they go nowhere. And I'm just saying that because it's a political season right now and the climate that we're in with an election year, but this goes for anything. And I think if you really want to be persuasive, let the other person help them understand and see how much you care about them and why you have this point of view for them that you do. Make sure that they're understanding that before you try to just drill your point into their head. So second to last one is, as long as you allow yourself to be a victim, you are letting others drive the vehicle of your life. I won't go into this one too much. I know a lot of people will probably argue with me on it, but don't allow yourself to be a victim. Things have happened to you. Things will continue to happen to you. They're unfortunate. They're not determining factors for you. There's ways around them. If Frederick Douglass could have bought himself out of slavery multiple times, taught himself English, you can figure out how to overcome the things that you're working through. The last point is indecision is a decision. A lot of people like to procrastinate and push things off forever and ever and ever. That is a form of a decision. Either way you're designing your life. You can either do it intentionally by design or unintentionally by default. Indecision is a decision. And that's the last one. I hope these 30 helped you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.